Today on TLC Live, we're going to talk with Gilbert Garcia. He is a candidate for Houston mayor candidate, and we're going to talk about last night Houston mayoral debate, the first one that only 5 out of 18 candidates participate in that debate. So we're going to have Gilbert Garcia, who is one of them that didn't participate, and we're going to have him on the show. Also analyzing the debate, we're going to have Dr. Chris Wolfe. He is from the University of St. Thomas. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to TLC Live. I'm Andrea Gomez.
I'm Orlando Sanchez.
A lot of things going on in politics. Last night, it was the first Houston mayoral debate that it was a partnership between NBC and Telemundo. NBC was airing the debate live, and Telemundo was...
Channel 2, which is NBC Universal,
Channel 2, correct.
owns both stations, both KPRC and Telemundo.
Telemundo is owned by NBC.
Right.
So Telemundo was streaming the debate, and also you were the political analysis in the debate, but streaming. Right. It was streaming, but NBC was airing this live. So I want to talk about, something that it got my attention. It's 80 candidates, but only 5 were on the debate. And that's why we decided also to invite our friend Gilbert Garcia. He is a candidate, and he is a Latino candidate. I don't know what was the requirement to participate on the debate, but I want you to give your opinion.
Yeah. Well, as most folks know, I've been in Houston politics for 30 years. When I ran for mayor of Houston in 2001 and 2003, I probably have combined about 23 live debate appearances on all networks, all channels. I've never seen a debate that excludes one of the candidates that has the resources that Gilbert Garcia has the following that he has the commitment to running a serious campaign that he's made, that is excluded from a debate stage. And that was particularly odd. And more interestingly, they replaced Gilbert Garcia with some woman named Mama Garcia, who had absolutely no issues to share with the public other than her general distaste for the Texas Education Agency's involvement in the failed Houston Independent School District. Amazing to me that all these people come out of the woodwork after the fact. Where were they when half the student population that is Hispanic was failing? Where were they when the school board members were being indicted and hauled off to the federal penitentiary? Where were they when millions of dollars of public money was given out in bogus construction and landscaping contracts? It's just amazing to me. And all the media now, all of them, KRIV Channel 26, Channel 2, 1311, have a negative news story about the Houston Independent School District. Where were they before?
Yeah.
When kids were dropping out. So it's going to be interesting. But Gilbert is with us this morning. Gilbert, good morning. We're going to, first of all, let you explain what was the misfire last night, and then we're going to get into your campaign, your issues, and why you're running. But tell us, what were the ground rules last night, and why were you excluded from the debate?
Sure, thank you. And you may have seen that I ran an ad right before the debate.
I saw it.
It all comes down to the League of Women Voters. They're the ones that changed the rules. So let's go to the rules. The rules were the following, and they did notify us that either A, you had to have 5% in a poll. There had been no polls run for some time, so that kind of was not a viable way to judge anyone. Or B, you had to have one single contribution, and they would count how many contributors you had. So it was either A, the poll, or number of contributors. Now, here's the thing, team. If you look at the previous mayoral cycle, they changed the rules. And they changed the rules to purposely exclude me. What the rule was last time was if you had 5%, if not, in a poll, you had to have raised or donated yourself $50,000. Well, my campaign is a $4 million operation. You know, I've been told, I can't verify that this is the senator's handiwork, as he has, of course, tentacles in so many organizations. And the League of Women Voters did this to purposely exclude me, and in the process excluded Robert Gallegos also. Mm-hmm. And Robert Gallegos may not have the resources and may not have raised the money, but Robert is a 10-year sitting, and he's sitting council member. And here's the other thing. If you look at all the debates that have been going on, I've been in every single one. So in other words, it's generally always been me, Sheila, and the senator. And then it's always been some group of either Lee Kaplan, MJ Khan, and Robert Gallegos. We've been the big five, so to speak, that have been generally everywhere. And then the next sort of people that are somewhat in or out are the councilman, Jack Christie. So this was a effort by the League of Women Voters to exclude primarily me. And it worked. And this is what Mama Garcia did. And I don't fault her at all. I really fault the league because they knew what they were doing. So what Mama Garcia did is she put on the internet, I want to be on the debate. I have an opportunity. Would you give me all $1? So are you ready for this? 400 people gave her $1. So she therefore qualified because she had the most number, or one of the most highest number of contributors. MJ Khan got about 20 or 30 contributions of $1. I don't fault him either. I think the real key that we need to ask the League of Women Voters is, why did you change? Who told you to change? And then I think a larger issue becomes, what responsibility is there to Telemundo and Que Onda magazine, who serve the Hispanic population, when if you look at that stage, there was not a single Hispanic. Mama Garcia self-identifies that she's not Hispanic. So that's why I'm able to say that. She self-identifies as white. So there wasn't a single Hispanic on that stage, and you have the leading Hispanic network, the leading Hispanic magazine, and you have a city that's half Hispanic, and you have Hispanic Heritage Month. It's like the quadrifecta. I was going to say trifecta, but I can't think of what quadrifecta means. So let me be quiet, because hopefully you get my drift. It was planned. And by the way, this is not the first time this happened. Another time this happened was the Tejano Democrats. The Tejano Democrats, and I'm a Democrat and I'm a Tejano. I'm not the only, so is Robert Gallegos. And I'm not here to carry his water, but I'm not the only. And the Tejano Democrats had their screening, and I screened. And, you know, you just screen. You remember, Orlando, you just sort of screen. They ask you a bunch of questions. And then you go to the meeting where they vote. Well, the screening committee recommended me. Well, lo and behold, at the day that the membership is going to vote, a whole bunch of people showed up, and they joined right there on the spot, about 60. And they just had cash. It was pandemonium. And they all of a sudden went with the endorsement of John Whitmire. This is what's been going on. And by the way, Houston, this is what goes on in the city. And that is precisely why I'm running. I was not going to participate in what I will describe as sort of pay-to-play practices or other sort of nefarious practices. I'm not about to go secure $1 contributions from 300-400 people. I'm just not going to do it. That's why I'm running, to stop that behavior.
Mm-hmm. And not only that is everything that you described, but also the two moderators, one from each channel, they are Latinas.
Yes.
They are Latinas, Daniela Guzman and Cristal Ayala. Two Latinas, and also the panel, it was Antonio Hernandez, and it was the Que Onda magazine guy, and it was Claudia Ortega. I mean, Hispanics. And we didn't see Hispanics candidates in the debate.
And there was even an effort, Orlando, I apologize, there was even an effort, you'll notice at the beginning, where they reviewed very precisely the rules. That's because I believe they know they're guilty. Why else would you feel the need to review the rules? Because nobody does that. Because if the rules are above board, well, they're above board. But if you did something nefarious and you changed the rules from the last election cycle, well, that's why you need some explaining to do.
How much money have you spent, and how much have you raised? Is that their issue, Gilbert?
No, I think the issue, I don't think that's the issue. I appreciate the question. I'll answer the question in a second. I think the real issue is the political class is all rallying behind the senator. And of course, there's a deep connection between the political class and lobbyists and people getting contracts. And that's how they make their living. So I think there's a complete rallying cry to keep that machinery in place. And I just believe that some of the participants, Telemundo and Que Onda, should have known better. And they should have questioned the League of Women Voters to say, wait a minute, why are we changing it from last time? And they should have questioned, wait a minute, what will the ramifications be if everybody just gets $1? And shouldn't we make sure the lead Hispanic candidates are on there? You know, Robert Gallegos is a solid citizen. For me, I mean, I'm a business person. I've never run before, but I was chairman of Metro. I graduated from Yale. I'm one of the few entrepreneurs that's out of the political class running. The other one really is Lee Kaplan, and he's a fine gentleman. So Houston needs to hear my view, because it's a different view from the political career politicians. And back to your question, I'm going to have about $4 million. Now, I've raised so far a little over 200,000, Orlando, somewhere in that range. So my wife and I have contributed about 3 and change million. That's our way to invest in our home. In other words, we view it as this is our home. Houston has been good to us. We're going to give back to the community because if nothing else, Orlando, I want my voice to be out there to talk about pay to play practices, why we need to end them, what it's costing the taxpayers, all these lobbyists and insiders. I want to audit the housing department, the health department, where the authorities have raided. Did you know, Orlando, that the housing department had to turn away a $60 million HUD grant that was meant for affordable housing when one of the number one problems is affordable housing? It's outrageous. So hopefully I answered your question, Orlando. We've invested. And by the way, I really sort of stopped raising money. Now I'm going to start again because a lot of my contributors were getting harassed by other candidate contributors, and I just don't need friends of mine that may have legislation in Austin or things like that to get, to get on the bad list.
I'm reminded of the confirmation hearing of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, the Judiciary Committee. And Clarence Thomas got so fed up that he called it a public lynching of an uppity black man. And I'll never forget that.
I remember.
And the question for you is this a slap to an uppity Hispanic who's been successful, a Yale graduate, former chairman of Metro, put in $4 million of his own money? Is this slapping down an uppity Hispanic in the city of Houston to protect the people who have for years, as you correctly point out, have had their snoot in the public trough making millions and millions and millions of dollars at the expense of the taxpayer?
I don't think so, but something almost equally as bad. I think it's more a snub at, we know this guy is going to clean it up. We know this guy is independent. We know he doesn't owe anybody anything. We know he certainly doesn't, this is them talking, he certainly doesn't owe us anything. And, I think it's more of we can't afford for him to be mayor because our entire gravy train that's existed for probably a couple of decades will be over. That's what I really think it is. I think the fact that I'm Hispanic just adds to it. The fact that I've been successful just adds to it. But I really think it goes back to he's an outsider. He's viable. He is saying things that nobody has had the courage to say in the past. And that's why we need to make sure we rally against him.
Okay.
Well, Gilbert, I know you're super busy campaigning, but what is this sending a message to Houston people, to our community? This kind of situation that we saw last night on the first mayoral debate. What is the message that is sending?
First of all, Latino community, you've got to wake up. Because this is going to continue to happen. We are going to continue to get marginalized. We're going to continue to, quote unquote, not matter. We're going to continue to be left out of the great Houston dream and the great Houston success. We've got to wake up. And this is what they do to us. Because you could argue, well, it was just Gilbert. No, they blocked out by the same way. There was another Latino candidate who is Julian Martinez. And then, of course, Robert Gallegos, a sitting councilman. All three of us got knocked out. And I think the larger message is to the Latino and Latina media world. They have a responsibility to do better. They have a responsibility and a moral obligation because that's their listener base and that's their community. And they should be focusing on uplifting the community. When you have everything lined up on marginalizing our community, well, no wonder we don't vote. And
Gilbert,
so
I'm gonna interrupt you because
please.
I'm going to share with you a complaint I've had about the Hispanic media in this town for years. I met Andrea when she was a reporter for Univision back in the late 90s when I was a city councilman. Let me remind you that back in those days, everybody covered local politics, including Telemundo and Univision, who showed up every Wednesday for the city council meeting and then did interviews and told the public in Espanol what the issues were. People were engaged. And you remember, Gilbert, because you were involved when I ran for mayor in 2001, we doubled the Hispanic turnout. The Hispanic turnout in those days had been 7% of the total vote. This is confirmed by Tacho Mendiola, professor of Mexican American Studies at the University of Houston, who did extensive research into that historic race. But not only did we double the Hispanic turnout from 7% to 14%, I got 72% of the Hispanic vote. Why? Because the media, Univision and Telemundo, were informing the public.
Yep.
We had 6 members of the city council and controller were Latinos. We had 2.
Wow.
We will remember that. Orlando Sanchez,
remember.
Gracie Saenz, John Castillo, Felix Fraga, Gabriel Vasquez, and then Sylvia Garcia was the controller back in those days. Since then, Telemundo and Univision have cut out of informing the public about local issues so that they can understand the political process. That is my chief complaint. And I have, for a long time, thought about filing complaints with the Federal Communications Commission when their licenses come back up because they don't do their job.
They don't.
And you hit the nail on the head. That's just frustrating to me that. And it's all of them, because I remember even ABC 13, Don Cobos would show up every week.
Yeah.
Channel 2 had reporters that covered and everybody's checked out of the local media. That's why mayors in this city now win elections with just around 100,000 votes, Gilbert. 100,000 votes total.
Pitiful. It's pitiful.
I lost a race with 180,000 votes. But let me tell you another thing. There are 283,000 registered Latino voters in the Houston area. So it is essential that Hispanics be informed, get motivated, and turn out to vote. Complaining, as Mama Garcia did, about an issue that the city of Houston can do nothing about, that is HISD, is not helpful.
I'm going to pivot to HISD, and I'll be fast because I know you all have a full agenda. Because here's my view on that. It's interesting because I'm kind of where you are. And we've seen this warning from Austin for a decade. And where were all these officials that are now having these press conferences? Where were they for a decade when the only thing that was happening was Hispanic kids and African American kids were getting through school and they were not prepared?
Right.
And so my view is you got a new superintendent. Rather than beat him up, I think we should embrace him to say, okay, maybe this is a fresh start. And let's find out, what does success look like to him? Is it better test scores? Is it a bigger enrollment? But let's find out, and then let's help him get there as fast as we can so the students succeed, and then we can get local control back. I don't see why they can't see that.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree. And let me just tell you, and I know Mark probably has it somewhere in his files. In 2018, Gilbert, I took a lot of heat because I held a press conference demanding that the governor quit talking about HISD and criticizing back then the leadership and go ahead and bring in the TEA because, as you say, we were failing our children. We were failing the taxpayers. We were failing parents. None of these people had a problem when the kids were failing. When Phyllis Wheatley, the most historic school that produced Barbara Jordan and other great leaders, were failing. We had half of our student population that are Latinos dropping out, and HISD said, oh, the Hispanics are very mobile. They move around. We just lose track of them. And it was like nobody cared. Where was Sylvester Turner? Where was Senator Whitmire? Where was all the media that covers HISD on a daily basis now? Because Miles is trying, as you say, to improve assistant. They have a very short window to do it. 48 months, I think, is what they've talked about. Where were these people? And
I know.
and I agree with you. Give them an opportunity. It's like, it's like it's like a football game, and they're trying to run the quarterback down and beat him up. I mean, you just don't
That's
do
right.
that. So I agree with you, Gilbert.
And we're here. We are here. It doesn't do any good to keep complaining. Back to the media, though, on one thing is, what I think Telemundo and Que Onda are missing. It's in their interest to continue to build up the Latino and Latina community. It's in their interest, because if we can build up the community, and if they can get energized, involved in the city, involved in issues, and if we can get them through the school system better prepared, and if we can get them into the middle class, and if we can get them to create wealth, that just broadens the business model for Que Onda and Telemundo. I don't see why they don't make that connection. It's in their interest to build it up and educate them as much as they can.
Yeah.
Gilbert, look, I just want to say you and I have been friends for many years. We've had a few issues along the way. Not a big deal. We come to it from different sides. You're a Democrat. I'm a Republican. But we have one thing in mind. We have our community. We have Houston's well-being. We understand. We see firsthand the corruption that happens at City Hall, and everybody sweeps it under the carpet. We see the same people with their snoot in the trough making millions of dollars off the backs of taxpayers, and nothing gets improved. I mean, last night I'm listening to this debate, and everybody said the same. Well, I'm going to hire 500 police officers. I'm going to have a new cadet academy. We need more law enforcement. We need better flood control. We need this and that and the other. No one talked about a process on how you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, Con called them out, but really, how are you going to pay 500 new police officers? Nobody's thinking outside the box, Gilbert. And the problem is, as I often say in my debate, public speaking engagements, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I think that's what you're trying to highlight. You present at different result. Let's look at it from a different angle.
And the financial situation of the city is going to be even more dire than we realize, because we haven't settled the firefighter, the will of the voters. We've been neglecting our infrastructure for a long time. There are so many issues to just say, I'm going to be this mayor or that mayor, or I'm going to bring 500 million, or I'm going to do this. It's just not even realistic. And I refuse to be unrealistic. And you know what, Orlando, if I lose because of that, that's okay, because I got to look at myself in the mirror and feel good as a human being and as a man that I ran a straightforward, honest campaign, and I'm not going to be, leading the voters astray.
I got to let Andrea jump in, but let me tell you, this really irks me because I made this comment to you last night in the studio. It's funny to me that when Tony Busby was dumping $10 million, and both Tony and you were very involved in that race, you know this firsthand, he wasn't excluded. He was using his own resources. Now comes Gilbert Garcia, who has his own resources. He and his wife have committed, as he says, $4 million to this campaign to try to improve Houston. And he's excluded from the debate. Makes no sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
So,
and that's why when I referenced last time, that's what I'm referring to. The rule was different. It was $50,000 if you had, and you were in, and he was in. They changed the rules purposely to exclude me, and that's the League of Women Voters.
Absolutely. So, Gilbert, call to action. I wanted you to talk about your campaign, the issues, and your platform, and why Houston need to vote for you.
Sure, I appreciate that very much. First, if you look, the two lead candidates, there's not too much difference between them. They are both long time, and I don't mean this word in a negative context. It has a negative context to it, but that's not what I mean. They're both career politicians. And what I mean by that is they've never had to work really in the private sector. They've never had to worry about, how am I going to meet payroll? How am I going to get paid this week during COVID? They've always had the comfort and the net of, if there's a problem, the taxpayers can just, bail us out by paying for this mistake or that mistake. And it's a very different mindset when you're out of the political bubble, because you have a concept of, this is real money. It's not just other people's money. And so that puts me in a very unique position. There is no doubt that the number one issue is crime. And I don't want to go through all the same thing everybody says. I'm trying to find solutions that are within reach. And one of them came from that PFM study, and Lee Kaplan has jumped on it, and that's okay. The more people that jump on it, the better, which is there are too many police officers doing civilian work. And it is much easier to hire civilians. It is much faster to deploy them than it is to hire police officers and put them through the cadet class and get them out. So why not hire more civilians and then free up those officers to do policing? I also want to expand community policing. Orlando, you may remember, because it was under Lee Brown when community policing was a big thing, and we went away from that model. I don't know why, because if you have police substations throughout the community, or at least in quadrants, just the visibility alone will be a deterrent. And then, like the firefighter model, we know the fastest way to get to a crime is to be spread out rather than one command central. And then the third thing is, this sounds very easy, and it is, but you'd be surprised at the correlation between darkness and crime. Let's get better lighting in high crime areas, because that's another way to just have a deterrent from crime. We've got to go into mediation with the firefighters immediately. I've been calling for that on my radio show for about 3 years. It's disappointing that it took this long, and it's of course a coincidence, I suppose, that the senator's running for mayor, and now he's discovering Houston and discovering an entertainment district and discovering mediation with the firefighters. I don't know why we weren't doing these things all along. And then one thing that I want to do as it relates to pay to play and so forth, there's two areas. One, the housing department was told to us by the housing director, it's a culture of corruption. He was fired. And then, of course, the DA raided the housing department, and then now they just had to forfeit a $60 million contract. There's something very wrong there. I don't know if it's nefarious activity or just incompetence or both. I would audit that immediately. And I don't mean a contract for somebody out there, a friend. I mean, let's just get the city controller or the Office of Inspector General to audit. Another one is the health department. The health department was raided by the FBI. Why? That's where the COVID money came through. Where there's money, there's always problems. Orlando, you know that. So I would audit that immediately. Here's another one. If you look at the recent airport concession contract, and remember, Andrea, those are the big contracts where there's all sorts of teams.
We call those the food fights at City Hall. The food fights.
The food fights. Thank you, Orlando. Here's the problem with it. If there are people who have no expertise in that contract, and there are people who have no capital at risk, why are they making money from the contract? Right? I mean, why are they? Because if somebody is not engaged, has no expertise, has no capital at risk, and they have some sort of profit in perpetuity, there's clearly something wrong. And that's money that should go to the taxpayers, whether it's for potholes or anything else. Well, that contract, Orlando, was done 4 times. They had the same outcome 3 times. And then what a coincidence. The 4th time was a different group, and they got the contract. It smells. I think the entire procurement process needs a complete overhaul.
Well, let me just say this, Gilbert. One of the shocking comments I heard last night is one of the candidates announced that current city controller, Chris Brown.
Oh, yeah.
And for full disclosure, I ran against him, came within 3.5 points of beating him, had no money, and filed at the deadline. He wants to hire him to be in his administration.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the man that not only had his hand in the cookie jar with a housing issue last year that the media and the city council was in the dark, the mayor was in the dark, had his hand in the cookie jar, got caught, has had no significant audits of departments that you're talking about to find out where the corruption is. The police department hasn't been audited in 8 years, Gilbert. The police department has not been audited. Now, he will say, yeah, I audited the property room and small little audits. But that's exactly right. As a business person, without audits, how the hell do you know where the money's going? How do you know if you have efficiencies?
And if your budget's $1 billion, Orlando, I promise you, you can find waste. That's a big budget, $1 billion. And just for best practices, you should have periodic audits or sunsets. That's what the state does. They sunset various departments on a regular basis. As it relates to the controller, my view is, again, where's he been? He's been invisible. Where's he been as a watchdog for the community on this, all these activities going on in City Hall? Ultimately,
I know, but look, hey, he will have a six-figure salary in the new mayor's office if it works out the way it's, these are the people that have had their snoot in the trough. That's what you're talking about.
That's exactly right. We need a shakeup at City Hall, and we need new players with new ideas, with private sector experience that do not owe anything to anyone, that have not taken a bunch of PAC money. When you see all these people with like 100 lists of endorsements of all the political class, you are, they're part of the political class, and you're going to get no improvement from that person.
Yeah. Well, Gilbert, we just wish you the best. We're here at TLC. We support you, and we hear you. And we were in shock last night when we didn't see you on the debate, and that's why we wanted to give you an opportunity and a platform to talk about your campaign and to talk about this issue that we're living in this city.
Also, I want to thank you personally, because I know how arduous and how tough it is to run for mayor in the city of Houston in any public office. I salute all the candidates. But again, I was dumbfounded that you were excluded from the debate stage, and I just, unbelievable. And of course they say, well, the rules were the rules. And as you say, I mean,
and we were like intrigued. What is the rules? That's why we wanted to.
Interesting rules. But anyway.
And why did they change?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially that.
Wish you the best. Always come on if you want to share something with our Latino community. Go back to work and do what you're good at, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank y'all for having me. I'm very, very grateful.
Gilbert, thank you so much.
Yes.
And if you guys have comments, questions, call us at the number that is on the screen, 281-833-3333. This is a very important issue. Elections are in November 7, but early voting started October 23rd, and is imperative to participate.
Y si hay alguien en la audiencia que no quiere hablar en español, tiene una pregunta, con mucho gusto, por favor, marquen el teléfono y hagan su pregunta aquí. Le respondemos en su idioma.
También. So now we're going to go to the University of St. Thomas with Dr. Wolfe, who is always willing to help us to understand what is going on in the city, what is going on in the politics. And especially yesterday that it was the first Houston mayoral debate. And as we saw, this sending a strong message, but not in a good way, to the Latino community and the community in general in Houston. So welcome, Dr. Wolfe, again. Thanks for always making the time to be with us on the show. We don't hear you. I think you're muted.
Okay. Somebody's muted, Mark. There you are.
Okay, perfect.
I'm always willing to try to help you understand this, because I'm much more new to the Houston mayor race than either of you guys are.
That's a good perspective. So what's your thought? Did you watch the debate? And if you have any sort of shining moments that kind of stuck with you that you want to talk about?
I did. Yeah. So my eyes were wide open on this one. Yes, it was quite odd that Annie Mama Garcia was on the stage. It seemed like
unbelievable. Somebody had an agenda to again hammer the school district and what they're doing. So I guess they gave her a free hour of and they even asked her about an issue that the city can do something about, and she says, "I'm not here to talk about that issue. I'm here to talk about the school district."
Yeah, education. That's it.
It's like
seriously, that's the whole. And you're gonna be a mayor of this city.
It was funny.
the third largest city in the country.
All right, Professor, go on.
We're also about to have a special session in the state legislature on possibly getting vouchers for for disadvantaged Texans, and she was dead set against that. So that perhaps that's another reason why they wanted her on the stage to be able to criticize that, I guess.
Yeah, Professor, look, let me jump in. Let me just tell you the way I see this, because I have followed this issue for decades, HISD. This is the behemoth, which is the educrats, the bureaucracy of the education system, fighting for every $1 billion in education. This is the Superintendents Association. This is the teachers unions. And nobody's talking about the kids and the community and the disservice that the public education system is doing to the communities. I am a supporter of public education. I want it to succeed, but what we had was not succeeding.
Right. I mean, you're right that they didn't mention the failure to the students. I mean, they were willing to admit the failures in terms of infrastructure in Houston, the drainage and the roads, and they also were willing to admit the increase in crime. So in general, the tone of the whole thing last night to me was that they were willing to admit that there's some real problems in Houston. But in terms of the actual, solutions, Whitmire, I mean, he's very liberal just looking at his record. He has like a 0% from the pro-life, on the life issues, was the way he voted in the state legislature. But he has this, hard on crime rhetoric, because I think that actually plays well in Houston. I mean, in terms of what they think is playing well with Houstonians is criticism of how it's been going in Houston. And so that tells you something, but then if they're willing to criticize it, what are they willing to do to try to fix it? I mean, MJ Khan was, putting forward some conservative ideas. He was the only Republican up there, I think. But it was surprising how critical they were willing to be of the running of Houston government.
Do you feel that we have any of those 5 candidates? It was somebody strong enough and he was really providing solutions for the issues that we have in Houston, the third largest city in the country. I mean, we're not talking about Laredo, Texas. We're talking about Houston, Texas. So do you feel that any of those 5 candidates will have like a really a strong message and they're really bringing solutions to the city?
I mean, a strong message of criticism, but in terms of the solutions, I didn't see quite enough in terms of the content of the solutions to me,
or how you pay for it,
or how you pay for it. That's also critical too. I mean, property taxes are the main thing we're talking about here, with a lot of local government, and yet those are going sky high, and well,
so not only are they going sky high, Professor, they also want to eliminate the revenue cap that has set that as a formula says you can't raise property taxes more than the increase of inflation and population growth. I mean, so it's never enough for them. Despite the fact that their revenue, their paycheck, which comes from the taxpayers, is increasing, they want more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And, what's just so in your face is when you have all that money coming in, you even have money allotted to things like roads, and it's just never fixed. I mean, my grandpa, who is from Houston, he's been telling me that the roads have always been like this, and they've just never been able to get their get the money to actually implemented to actually spend it on that, and it's just amazing.
What is your thoughts about how the media managed this first debate, especially knowing that it's 18 candidates, and I can understand that not everybody qualifies, but the main candidates were not, I mean, especially we are at 50% of the population in Houston is Hispanic, and we don't have representation in our population. So what is your thoughts the way that the media managed this debate?
It was very odd seeing that video at the beginning where they're explaining, okay, this is how we came up with the rules, excluding these candidates, but you can go watch online. And so I did watch, the videos online, but it was very odd. And then they had, I think, four different people who would ask questions, and there was a lot of substance, at least, to the debate. And there wasn't a whole lot of interference with the candidates by the media members, which I appreciated. But it was odd because all the candidates were allowed 2 rebuttals in this debate format, and so you had candidates who would get in their jibes, and then you could use a rebuttal on it or not, but you only could do it twice. And so so some of the front runners, Whitmire and some of these others would get jibes, and he would just kind of take it because he only had two rebuttals. I mean, so that was kind of I'd not seen a debate like that, but so I was at least glad with the way it was conducted when they were on the stage, I guess. But I agree, the selection seems very fishy. Yeah.
Professor, I'm amazed at American politics sometimes. I guess I've been in it too long, but I think most reasonable people would agree that crime is out of control in major metropolitans of the United States. The question is, how did we go from relatively controlled crime in Houston, let's say pre-2018? This is when Republicans, and I don't want to make this partisan, but I just wanted to talk about the academics behind this. Post-2018, when Lena Hidalgo and the Democrats swept the entire judicial system in Harris County, crime has become uncontrolled in the region. Houston bears the brunt. Everybody knows, because Channel 26 and Randy Wallace have done a great job doing a program called Breaking Bond. They highlight the violent repeat criminals that are put out on the streets by judges. This all started many years ago when the MacArthur Foundation came to Harris County and was trying to institute bail reform. They thought that the bail system was racist, that it was stacked against low income, especially minorities. And they made the argument, which I happened to agree with at the time, that there were people in the Harris County Jail who couldn't afford a minimal bail bond for shoplifting, nonviolent crimes. We agreed with that. The court, agreed with that. So we have the settlement. But what happened is that the county went way beyond that, gave these judges all this leeway based on some ridiculous, personal beliefs that they can give $0 or $1 bonds to violent criminals. And we've seen this all across America. It's not just Harris County. It's San Francisco, it's Chicago. But I'm telling you, there are leftist organizations that, hate capitalism, hate democracy, and they're trying to destabilize America. What better way to do it than create mayhem on the streets in major cities? As a result, we have to be honest with ourselves. Major retailers in San Francisco are pulling out. Apple Store's pulling out. Target's pulling out. Walmarts are closing. This is their mission and their goal. And if people don't realize that, we need to wake up that creating crime, mayhem in the streets is the best way to stabilize what we've all come to love about America, that even immigrants can come here, participate in the capitalist system, and move up in the world. Make real money. Buy a Ford F-250. Send, like Julian Ramirez running for mayor, started as a mechanic in Houston.
Julian Martinez.
Julian Martinez. Martinez. Started as a mechanic, an immigrant from the Dominican Republic, owns over 6 acres at the corner of Janetta and Richmond, has put 3 children through college. That's the American dream. Now they're trying to kill that system. It's just amazing. Am I off mark here?
No, you're right. And during the debate, MJ Khan was talking about, we need to focus on jobs and the economy, but you're right that crime and the rule of law actually deters business. And a lack of the rule of law that actually makes it not you're not able to have businesses come in like you mentioned in San Francisco like they would, and they want to leave. And it's not just a failure of in terms of bringing in more business, but it's also a failure of the average citizen. There's just a matter of justice that citizens should be able to live decent lives, and you need to have the rule of law to do that. You need to deter crime in many different ways. And if we do just let the criminals off who are violent, then we are not deterring them. We are in some ways facilitating them to do it again. Just in my own example, I'm just a driver here in Houston, and I just see the traffic laws just being broken all the times. And so some of these killings in Houston are on the roads too. And so it's just, I see a lack of enforcement of basic traffic laws, basic laws in Houston, and that's not good for the average citizen.
Well, Professor, call to action to the community in Houston.
No doubt. And I'm going to keep on watching these debates, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope that the discussions continue, and it's not just that we go along with who the favored son in Houston is of the Democratic Party, which it seems like it's Whitmire right now.
Oops.
All right, Professor, thank you for your time, the generosity of the university to share your time with us, and we'll look forward to having you back on the program.
You bet. Good to talk with y'all.
Likewise.
Thank you so much. And I would say call to action, we need to do our own homework. Everybody in Houston needs to do their own homework. I know that politics is not a sexy topic for nobody. I mean, not for nobody. For you, it's a lot of sexy topic. But for many people, most of the people don't like to talk about politics. But whether we like it or not,
then don't complain about your water
exactly.
bill.
Politics,
don't complain about crime.
Run
don't
everything.
complain about the school district stealing your money. Don't complain about Metro building a bus line for $200 million that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
Don't complain about tax increment reinvestment zones taking money out of the general fund and spending it in luxury accommodations for certain sections of the city. Don't complain about food deserts or lack of access to health care. Then don't complain. Just pay your taxes and let government do their thing.
Exactly.
Or take a few minutes of your time, study the issues, study the candidates, ask questions, and then make an informed decision.
It's a lot of things that it play big roles in our life every single day that it's on the ballot this November. And we need to pay attention because it's our money. And as you said, we pay their salaries. We are paying everything that that is happening in the cities. It's our money. So we need to pay attention who we elect and who we put in charge of our money. So that's very important. So I know you also are running for controller, and this is a position that people don't understand how important it is. Because people say like, oh yeah, the mayor or the council members. This position is very important, and it has nothing to do. You don't work with the mayor because you're watching the budget.
Yeah, it's an independently elected position,
exactly.
and the city controller answers to the people, not the city council and the mayor. We don't work for anybody but the people. Yeah, that's an important position, has the power to audit. As Gilbert Garcia was talking about, the audits are essential. How can you run a multi-billion-dollar operation and not perform audits other than some very simplistic, property room audits or little audits just to kind of cover for those that are depleting your public tax dollars in a very inappropriate way. I think everybody understands that in Houston, and it is what it is. But yeah, make an informed decision.
So, informed decision, and also, do we have our new website? We have our new website because this is, we just launched our new website last week, and we want to share with you guys the new design. And thanks to, here we go, that's me. DigiClicks, the company that is making the website, they did a fantastic job. This is part of our commercials that we filmed last year. And we need to play the new commercials next Wednesday with the church commercial and also with Julian Martinez.
Good.
So thank you so much, everybody, for watching us. Very important. Last night it was the first Houston mayoral debate, but it's our responsibility to get to know who is running for what position and what is in the elections this coming November, because these local elections are the one that impact our daily life. So do your homework. October 23rd is early voting, and then November 7th is elections day.
By the way, and any candidate that wants a few minutes on the program as we extend it to Gilbert, we're happy to do so. We're not, nonpartisan. We have conservative values, but we certainly understand how arduous it is to run for mayor. And so if you want an opportunity to come talk to essentially Hispanic voters that lean a little bit conservative, you can certainly come on the program anytime you want. Reach out to us via email or through our website. Again, we are relying on the generosity of Texans to keep us doing what we're doing all over the state of Texas. I'll be up in Dallas today addressing the Texas Federation of Republican Women over the weekend. They're having a big convention up in the Farmers Branch area of Dallas, so I'll be headed up to Dallas in just a little bit. We have been in San Antonio. We're trying to get involved in Lina Prado's campaign, hopefully do with her what we did with John Lujan. And so a lot of good things happening, but we can't do it without your political and financial support. So go make a donation to us. Go to our website, hit the donate button, give us $5, $10, or $50,000. We'll put it to good use.
Nos vemos el próximo miércoles. Gracias por acompañarnos. Chao, chao.